There's no deals. There's just no deals. They're all gone. Give up on all your hopes and dreams. There's nothing to buy. It's over, folks.
It's hotter than Venus out there right now in the real estate market.
It is very hot, and there are very hard to find deals. And I think pretty much the feeling that we have consistently is once we buy a deal, it's like that's the last one we're going to get. I can't find anything, and then we find another one, and then once we buy that one, it's like, oh, that's the last one we're going to get. We're not going to find any more. The market's too hot. There's nothing out there, and then we find another one, and they kind of rinse and repeat. Not at the speed it was when the market was a bit cooler and there was more available, but we have consistently been able to find good deals in this extremely hot market, despite the ever-present feeling that there are no more to be found.
And this is a little second-hand anecdotal information, but what I've heard about sales, for example, is the most successful salespeople are the one who always have that sense of the next deal is out of reach. And that next deal is never going to come. Even people who have amazing sales records, they still have that sense of like, well, I'm out of ideas, I'm done, I'm not going to be able to get the next one. And that sense is a motivator for them in terms of like when the times are good, they're not lazy and just sitting back and not getting that next deal. And when the times are bad, they have that same urge to try to keep grinding out that next deal. And that's kind of, I think, what people have to have that mindset in the real estate market right now.
You can really hone your skills in a market like this. To find good deals, in soft markets, it's easy to find what seem to be good deals, at least. In hot markets, it's harder to find those. It's easier to flip them. It's easier to do a lot of the other things, but it's harder to find good deals. And basically, it's always to say like everybody wins when the market's going up, and when it crashes, the people who weren't actually doing well but just kind of riding the market, they fall out. It's not quite the same, but it is kind of a time to really, really improve what you're doing, because every market has a problem. Every time, the real estate market has something good about it and something bad. Right now, the appreciation is great, prices are going up, the values of the properties we have are going up, interest rates are ridiculously low. I've seen people for buying their own home getting rates below 3%, like I thought 2.25%, which is just stupid. I mean, inflation is more than double that. And
maybe triple, quadruple. Yeah. We got a video about that.
I've got I've got nostalgia at times for about 10 years ago when we first came out to Kansas City, buying real estate, and there was just more houses than we could buy. They were all REOs, bank-owned properties, from the massive foreclosure crisis, and it was just one after the next after the next. But back then, we would have to turn deals down because we couldn't buy them all.
Yeah.
We didn't have the ability to finance them, and banks weren't lending. And when they did, it was like 15-year amortization, 6.5% interest. Just awful terms.
You always forget about the problems you're not dealing with it in the current market. Yeah. So a lot of people are jumping in now and seeing the prices from 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years ago, or go like, oh, I wish I could buy those prices. The problem is, you kind of couldn't on some level. There was no money to be had. We wanted to buy more and more and more. There wasn't money, so everybody had problems about finding financing, and that was the big issue.
No one's complaining right now about getting approved for loans. Whereas back then, it was like every bank would talk to we had losses in single family or multifamily housing, so we're not doing that right now. It's like, well,
because you bought at a little bit of a different
losses
price
when it was twice the price. Yeah, and so I mean, there's other. It's not just this kind of micro thing. There's also far more training available now than there used to be. There's a lot of BS guru stuff to avoid.
But there's so much available material. Like if you were in the 70s investing in real estate, your competition was much, much lower, but it was so much harder.
Less sophisticated, perhaps.
Yeah, there honestly weren't as many individual real estate investors, but there wasn't as much ability to just learn. You had to figure it a lot more out on your own. You didn't have all these resources together. You couldn't manage the same portfolio because the technology wasn't there.
I mean, managing a single-family portfolio over 100 units would be extraordinarily difficult without property management software and all those other things. I mean, just the MLS. The MLS used to be just a booklet of all the houses that were listed in that market or in that sub-market. Being able to, comparing properties, I mean, oftentimes it was driving. This is just 20 years ago. Just driving, the real estate agent would need to drive by these houses to get an idea what they look like in the neighborhood.
Because they knew where GPS. Yeah. People don't think of that as an innovation for real estate investment, but it is. It's so much easier to go from house to house.
This makes it so much easier to compare properties. You can even get a Zestimate. If it's a cookie cutter house, it will probably be relatively close. Don't trust the Zestimate by itself, though. But At the same time, that makes it easier. Competition, it makes it easier for them. So there's advantages and disadvantages to all of these different things, and every market is going to have its pluses. Like this one, it's easy to get financing. Your properties that you own, if you own any, are appreciating. Your financing terms are fantastic. A couple of years back, maybe 10 years ago, properties were in abundance, but financing wasn't there. And also there was more contractors around. They were easier to find than now.
Yeah.
But it's so there's always, you should force yourself not to become too nostalgic and remember the tough times, remember the problems with any market, and don't just be like, oh, I wish I had bought 10 years ago. Well, I mean, yeah, but regret, first of all, is useless. We have a video on that. But secondly, it might not have been as easy as you thought because the financing just wasn't there.
Well, and the truth is, you always have to find a way to differentiate yourself.
Got to find those niches.
If it was in the 1970s, it might have been just more knowledge. If it was, 10 years ago, it was having cash or having financing options. Today, it might be being able to source deals better, or finding niches that you can make work that other people can't, or just that aren't as saturated.
Like a lot of people are moving, and we are as well, at least a portion of our portfolio, into Airbnb properties because the cash flow has reduced as properties have gotten more expensive, and so that is an angle that is especially if you have a house.
A lot of people have hit that one, but it's still available.
Yeah, it's something to consider, especially like you going in as a new investor. That oftentimes you don't think of it that way. That's something like seasoned investors do, but there's no reason a new investor can't do one Airbnb property.
Another thing we looked at a lot is commercial real estate because that hasn't seen the
particularly smaller commercial.
Yeah, that hasn't seen the same kind of craziness that residential has. It's a weird market now.
A lot of commercial got hammered by COVID, and so we saw like rates of business shuttering at like 30%. It's making a comeback. It's not going to make it back to what it was, but at the same point, it is making a comeback, and so there is an angle there in small retail, small offices, and things like
People
that.
People trying to divest, and you can pick those things up. There's other things. Build to rent's been a really popular thing.
It's becoming an obsession. Yeah, if you have, like, I was just at an IMN conference, and build to rent was just on everybody. There's always something that's like the big thing, but that's the one there. Our dad is actually getting into building LIHTC, low income housing tax credits of Section 42. That's a bigger project. But he's also done some group homes that are becoming more and more popular, like kind of communal living type of situations, or for elderly care, or above 55 housing. I mean, there's Brandon Turner's gotten to mobile home parks. There's all sorts
land
of
contract investing. There's all sorts of stuff you can do, but you have to differentiate yourself and be better than the competition at know more, be faster, have a advantage that other people don't.
Additional dwelling units in some markets. We've done that, like in Portland. That's been a kind of a way to increase the cash flow potential of properties. There's a lot of different niches that are available. Although the traditional niches are still there. The house that I
was just gonna. How'd you get your last deal, Andrew?
Last deal we got was on the MLS. And I would have thought that would have just been like not a thing like that. That's done. That ship has sailed, or maybe gotten like an iceberg's like shot out of the sky and it's just sky, whatever.
Iceberg shooting things out of the sky. Okay, well.
It's mixing different.
Fair enough.
Okay. But the last one we got was on the MLS. There's still deals on the MLS. They're rare, I will acknowledge that. And generally you need to act quickly, or perhaps it's a mislisting. We bought one about a year and a half ago that was listed at 400 square feet, but it was a 2-bedroom. And it's like, that doesn't make any sense. So we went there. It was an addition that wasn't included in the square footage, and got it very cheap.
400 square foot house.
Someone I talked to at the IMN conference was talking about how they were finding deals by finding portfolios of houses on the MLS. They would go there and they'd look at the additional documents, and there'd often be like a portfolio list. There are several other houses that wasn't listed as a portfolio itself, and by making an offer on all of them, they'd get a bit of a discount. With wholesalers, they're still around. Actually, they're still around as an understatement.
Yeah, I mean, 10 years ago there weren't really any wholesalers. So now I'm tired of seeing all these wholesalers sending me not great deals. But 10 years ago, I couldn't find a wholesaler to give me any deals. Really, there was a couple, but it was rare.
It's same with wholesalers like the MLS, although a bit better. There are some good deals that slip through, especially if you are capable of taking on a big rehab and good at judging that amount.
Or you offer some sort of value to the wholesaler,
close quickly.
You can close quickly.
Be on their first to call list.
If you're a big time investor, you can take on some of the not as great deals of a wholesaler to get the really good ones that they bring up, so that you're just like, hey, I'm your one-stop shop. You find a way to bring value to the wholesaler, and they'll bring value to you.
The most popular method, direct to seller marketing is still there. I would say, you've got to increase your expenses to marketing expenses and be careful. Like, we get a ton of letters, we're an LLC. Like, don't send to LLCs and don't send to the same one over and over again. But I mean, there's still like absentee, out of state owners. If anyone's in foreclosure right now, I don't know why you would be, just sell your house. The market's gone up so much. But there's still angles there. SEO, search engine optimization, getting up in those. That was a possibility that wasn't there 10 years ago, or 15, 20 years ago. There's another advantage. Those are still around. Networking with sellers, with brokers, with commercial brokers. I mean, the same stuff is still there. It still works.
There's
but
new
you need
ways
to kind of
do
get
it.
in those niches.
And you got to find a way to not be the 20th letter someone sees. You need to be, the one that someone calls, or the way someone finds you that's different. So there's new ways to do all of the same things that have been done for years that weren't available before, and you got to innovate and find your niche and find your way to compete and out-compete everybody else. In a sense, it's the same thing it's always been.
Yeah, and they're there, and you're gonna have that feeling. There's no point to it. There's no point because everything is just ridiculously expensive. But at the same point, your financing is substantially less, and so that makes it. That makes your cost of funds less. That makes your expenses less. And there are plenty of deals that fall between the cracks. There are plenty of absentee owners that want to just ditch their property. There are mislisted properties on the MLS. There's special niches. There's Airbnb. There's all sorts of things you can do. Mm-hmm. So I think the key is just don't get discouraged. They're still out there. So the key thing is just don't get discouraged. There are still deals out there. There's a lot more education. You can subscribe to our channel to get some of that. But the key thing here is, don't sit on the sidelines, and for the reasons to do that, check out this video right here now.